I'm still finding odd random planting garden packs that we just put to one side and eventually just forget about them. Oh, I've just come across this one this morning, and it's a strange one because it's got a mixture of plants in it. Yeah, another pepper plant there. We don't really need that. I might just pop it in ground outside somewhere. I've got that many peppers growing, around 50 at the moment. So, but there is a cabbage plant in here as well, and it looks pretty decent. Looks nice and healthy, and that's a Savoy cabbage. We ain't got many of those kicking around, to be honest. I think I've got a couple in one at raised beds, and that's about it. So there's 2 of those in here, so I think it's worth potting these on and saving them. What I'll do is I'll just pop them in 2 litre pots for now. That's going to help them grow on a bit. I could put them straight out in garden if I wanted. And somebody was commenting on channel the other day about the brassicas being a bit leggy. But it don't matter because we always do the same thing with them. These are starting to get a little bit stretched. You can see that stem is not only stretching, but it's also bending as well. So when you put your plant in, it's going to start to fall over as it grows. And if leaves are laying on ground and you're watering it, well, they're just going to rot, and then it's going to get attacked even more by slugs. So in answer to that question, you just bury them right down to there. I did reply to that question saying just bury it down to V, but then again, you might not know what I meant by that, but that's what I call the V. We can take all that stem out and bury it right down to there, so we've only got that bit of plant sticking up. It can be a bit awkward if you're putting them in pots, because you're trying to make that plant central, but it's growing that way. So you basically just plant it right to one side of the container, and then your plant will end up being central. So I plant them like that. The root part of that plant is there, and then the plant goes across and then up. So we end up with a plant that's pretty much central. And then I'll press it down and bury that entire stem. We are doing a few brassicas in containers, so I don't mind putting them into bigger containers, staging it and letting them grow on. But obviously if we don't move this plant, it's not going to come to anything. So that's why I'm doing it this morning. We've still got a little bit of that stem sticking up, so I'll just bury it a bit more. Now you can see that that plant looks much better. And do the exact same thing when you're burying them outside in your raised beds. And then we've got that second one. Pop that label in there. I'll remember what they both are. This one hasn't got a long stem, but it has got yellowing leaves. So we might as well take those off straight away. They're not going to help that plant. And just leave us a nice little compact plant. Lots of roots on the bottom of this. They need untangling. I forgot to check the other one, so hopefully that were alright. But because it's been in that cell for so long, these roots are now starting to wind round and around, and we don't want that. Exactly the same as we did before. Pushing that plant far down as we can, so there's basically no stem sticking up at all. And then once again, we've got a nice stocky little plant. So I hope that helps you out if you've had a bit of a problem with your brassicas going a bit leggy. Whether they go in containers or in ground outside, they'll stay upright for duration. And now I've got both my plants potted on. And now we've done that, in just a few weeks time, it'll be that big. And then it's either going to go in another container or we'll put it in ground outside. But at least now we're getting a fighting chance. Before I move on to the next thing, I want to say thank you very much to Steve and Co, who made a donation to the channel yesterday. Really appreciate that, Stephen. Thank you very much. And I shall pop out at weekend and we'll stock up on fertiliser because we are getting a little bit low. Another question I've been asked is, how do you know when your onions are ready? and round about how long do they take to grow. I mean, on average around 120 days, but that's also dependent on weather. We keep planting onions in containers like this. These have been down in container garden, and we just put a few onion sets in there, see how they do, and they're coming on really well. But if you look at these green tops, they're all nice and stood up straight. The bulbs in there are big enough to harvest if you wanted to, but they will get bigger if you leave them, which is what I'm going to do. But typically when your onions are getting ready to be harvested, they'll do this. Just fall over on their own. Almost as if they've died, but they haven't. Basically that is not feeding this stem anymore. It's kinked over itself, and that bulb will then start to swell. So at some point, usually middle of July, all your onions are going to start and fall over. And that's a good sign, because when they fall over, that means that all that energy is now going into those bulbs to make you bigger onions. And as far as harvesting comes, once that happens, it's entirely up to you. Onions don't have to ripen like a fruit. You can take them as baby onions, or you can leave them to get as big as possible. And when those stems do fall over, that's when you stop watering them. You can give them a little bit of water now and again when it's really hot and sunny. Usually 3 to 4 weeks before you harvest these onions, you don't water them. They'll still grow. The skin is going to get a bit tougher and a bit browner, which is what you're looking for, because then they'll store a lot better as well. And if you get any onions that don't fall over, you can push them over so they're all flat at the same time. But every now and again you're going to come across one that's got a really thick stem and it won't push over. The best thing to do with those is to just pull them straight away and use them, because any onions that you harvest that have got really thick necks on them have got a very short shelf life, so they're better off being used straight away, which to me is like a bonus, because if I get 4 or 5 of those, I just chop that top off them, and then I can put the onion bulbs in the fridge, and they'll keep in that fridge for quite a while. They just will not store for months and months like the ones that have fallen over. So around 120 days, but look for that falling over. Stop watering and those bulbs will swell a little bit more, and then you can take the lot round about the end of August. Some plants on the other hand are a little bit more tricky to judge, like carrots, because you don't know what's below surface until you pull it up. This one's been in container garden for quite a while. It's not grown as good as I wanted it to, but it's still growing carrots. And it's a point of when you decide to take them out. There's no set time for carrots really. The easiest way is to have a look round top of your plants, see how big the top of that carrot is, and then cover it back up if you're not going to pull it. Because if you don't, that carrot top will turn green with light getting on it. Pretty much the same for any root vegetable. It's the mystery beneath. So parsnips, carrots, Swedes, turnips, beetroot. The beetroot and the Swedes are a lot easier to judge because they're a root vegetable that sits on surface, so you can see. Carrots and parsnips, however, everything's below that compost. So you're just going to have to judge for yourself on that. I'm not particularly that fussed, especially when I'm growing carrots in containers. I'll take small carrots rather than big long ones, because you're not going to get big long carrots really out of a container unless it's quite a bit deeper than this. But a carrot that length is perfect for me, or even smaller. I'll take bunches of baby carrots, because you don't even have to bother peeling those. You just top and tail them, give them a scrub, and then you can put them straight on for a boil. We've had a few different results from carrots since we've been doing them this year, and we've also had lots of foliage just dying back, which is fine. We just take it off and then fresh ones will grow. If we just look inside this container, so we've got a planter there full of carrots, and we've got quite a bit of foliage that's starting to die back. Just take that off, don't worry about that. It's going to go yellow, then it'll go brown, and then it'll die anyway. So I just go around and do a quick clean up on these containers every now and again. Obviously not as often as I should, because there's quite a lot in here. that's died back itself and fell off. But these carrots are still growing. That's all that matters. And more to the point, we've still got fresh green growth coming. So you can just leave these carrots. I've just spotted something quite amusing. There's a cabbage there growing in the middle of all these carrots. But look at length at stem. It's shot right up. Now that's probably one of the best examples of a leggy plant that you're ever going to see. Because it's been surrounded by all these carrot tops, which would have been a lot more dense quite a while ago. This volunteer plant has had to stretch to try and get light. That's probably the longest I've ever seen one stretch. So I'm going to take that out anyway. Now that's a leggy plant. I don't think we can bury that one. But getting back to these carrots, what we want to be doing every now and again is taking the compost from around tops of these carrots like that. Just uncover that carrot so you can see just how big it is. And that doesn't look a bad size. And the top's orange because we've kept it covered up. So basically it's up to you. If you want to take that out, twist it out and have a look, you can. Or you can just cover it back up and let it grow on if it's not big enough for what you want. What I'm going to do is I'll take this one out and we can have a look, see. Sometimes the snout though. Now that's not a bad length carrot. I'd be quite happy to harvest carrots at that size. It's a little misshapen on top. It's obviously been restricted by carrots next to it at some point. And I did notice there was another one really close to it, which probably caused this to happen. But that's still a good sized carrot from a little container. There's another one next to it that looks even bigger. See that just there. You can see that we spaced these carrots out, but these two are a little bit too close together. But we've got carrot tops coming on all these plants. So now we've reached that point where we can see all these carrot tops are a good size. So we could just harvest everything out of this container, or we could just leave it. That's entirely up to you. For the moment I'm going to leave those because I think they've got a bit more growing left in them. Lots and lots of carrots in there, some a little bit too close together, but we're still getting carrots at that size. And I'm quite happy at that from containers, especially since there's quite a lot of carrots in there. So if we was to empty that entire container, we'd have a really big bunch of carrots that's going to last us a couple of weeks or more. And of course we've always got more that we've sown to replace these when they're finished. So carrots, basically when you're ready, take one out, have a look. If you think all the others are going to be the same, then you can harvest them. But you've also got a choice of just leaving them to grow on as long as you want. And it's still come out really straight as well. I also got asked about potatoes. Again, it can be quite tricky, but you've got three different types of potato. You've got your first earlies, your second earlies, and then your main crops. First and second earlies are new potatoes. So normally your first earlies should be ready to harvest in about 12 to 14 weeks. And then your second earlies a little bit longer. 17 weeks onwards, it's up to you. Second earlies will grow that bit bigger if you leave them longer. And then your main crops are ready when the entire plant has died back. And also, not all first and second early potatoes flower. Pretty much most of them that I've come across do, but there is a few varieties out there that don't put any flowers on. But getting flowers on your potato plants is a sign that your tubers are starting to grow. So for first and second earlies, I'll wait until all the flowers have completely died back, and then I'll leave it a little bit longer. You're only going to get really small potatoes from your first earlies, about the size of an egg. And they don't store very long. So if you are harvesting potatoes that are first or second earlies, stagger those harvests. Don't take everything all at once because it'll not keep in fridge. This one here, the second earlies, and they've been in here for quite a while. But you've got that same old problem again, just like with carrots and parsnips. How do you know it's ready? Well, apart from waiting till all your foliage dies back, or recording the amount of weeks that you've been growing them, the only other thing that you can do is just dig in and have a feel. See if there's any potatoes in there of any size. We did that recently on another video. We got one in a container and we pulled the old plant out and we could see these little tubers growing, but they were so tiny. There was definitely nothing there worth harvesting, and the top foliage was still alive, so we just popped it back in and we left it. But sometimes you can't take the whole thing out like this, so all you can do is just have a little bit of a dig in to see if there's anything in there. But you have to be careful as well not to disrupt those roots too much. This one is getting quite a lot of tired leaves on it as well. If I dig down, I can't feel anything in there at the moment, but we have got foliage that's starting to die back. But if you have a dig in and you find a potato that's the size that you're happy with, then you can just turn a lot out, because the chances are pretty much most of them are going to be that size. That's pretty much all you can do when it comes to your potatoes. First and second earlies, wait till it's flowered and the flowers have completely died back. Do an average of somewhere in between 15 to 20 weeks just to be safe. Let the entire foliage die back if you want to, but 9 times out of 10 for those particular varieties it doesn't take that long. When it comes to your main crops, you wait until the entire top of that plant is completely died back, because you're expecting much bigger potatoes. And then a couple of weeks before you decide to harvest, chop all this top foliage off and then leave it, because then your potatoes are going to dry. The outer skin of that potato is going to become a bit tougher, and that's why main crop potatoes store a lot better. But you can also just leave them after you've done that. You don't have to wait 2 weeks after you've cut the tops off and then harvest everything. It's perfectly fine just to leave them with those tops cut off for as long as you want. So you can just take one every other week until you've used them all. But if you have got somewhere to store them and they're at a size you're happy with, you can just take them all out. It's entirely up to you. And now we'll get these potatoes out of here, because you're not supposed to have potatoes in the same area as tomatoes, because they can pass disease to each other. That's a few questions answered that we've had over the last few days or so. And anything else that people want to know or they're not too sure about, feel free to drop a message in comments, because I read every single comment that I get, and I personally answer every single comment as well. And I've done that from the very beginning, because apart from you listening to me, it's important for you to know that I'm listening to you as well. So anything that comes to mind, just drop a comment and I'll get round to it as soon as possible. Between now and then, I need to go and get some watering done, and then we can have a look at what other seeds I'm going to be sowing this afternoon. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this in future, please hit that subscribe button, press that notifications bell, and I'll see you next time. Take care.